La cosa más peligrosa que la mayoría de nosotros haremos en nuestra vida es conducir, y esto lo hacemos a diario, sin pensar lo peligroso que es. Lo que mata a más personas en los Estados Unidos es el crimen ocasionado por accidentes de tráfico. Este crimen mata a más personas que todos los otros tipos de crímenes combinados, y más de una tercera parte son ocasionados por un crimen: conducir intoxicado. Este es el crimen más común y violento cometido en el país. El crimen por conducir intoxicado genera historias de horror, pero no hay verdaderos villanos aquí. Estos delincuentes no son gente mala, son personas que tomaron una mala decisión. Algunos consideran que el conducir intoxicado es un crimen sin víctimas, pero no lo es. De acuerdo a las estadísticas de la Administración Nacional de Seguridad Vial, el conducir intoxicado le cuesta a los Estados Unidos más de 132 miles de millones de dólares y arrebata más de 10,000 vidas cada año. En los Estados Unidos hay un promedio de 1.5 millones de arrestos anuales por conducir intoxicado. El estado de Texas es responsable por 90,000 de esos arrestos, y casi el 10% ocurre en el área del condado de Harris, en Houston.
DWI is one of the biggest problems that we face as a community. Harris County leads the nation every year in intoxicated-related fatalities on the roads, and this year is no different.
En promedio, la investigación ha enseñado que 10,000 personas han muerto en accidentes causados por manejando abajo la influencia de alcohol. Y muchas veces las personas ni se dan cuenta lo que ha sucedido. Y la investigación también ha enseñado que las personas que cometen el crimen de manejando bajo la influencia de alcohol han cometido la ofensa 80 veces antes de que la policía los pare.
Texas is known on a national level as being the worst state for drinking and driving fatalities, and Harris County is known for the worst county in Texas. So that makes us the worst county in the entire United States as it relates to DWI and the scourge of DWI and the death and destruction that drunk drivers cause.
Las estadísticas muestran que conducir ebrio se convierte en hábito. Y cuando alguien es detenido, lo más probable es que no es su primera infracción.
People are too often going to think, oh, I can handle it. I can hold my liquor. And they don't understand that it's not about not being able to handle it. It's not about bravado. It's not about the law of averages. It's a fact that impairment really does start with the first drink.
Hey, open your eyes. Look right here. Look at my finger up here. The finger up here. Look right here. Right up here. See my finger right here?
Can I go to sleep?
Well, after we go inside and take some blood from you. All right?
Ellos llegan a la casa ni sabiendo lo que ha pasado, y muchas veces las víctimas que mueren en el accidente de causa de un manejando abajo la influencia de alcohol.
Sin embargo, las estadísticas no hablan del dolor que ocasionan. Tampoco hablan de lo que queda grabado en la mente de todos los involucrados. No solo los delincuentes y víctimas, sino también a los que proporcionan primeros auxilios y de los que atestiguaron el crimen.
Some of the most horrific scenes that I've witnessed as a police officer, some of the most painful scenes, from dead babies to a beautiful young lady I'll never forget. She's under the influence, rolls her car, her face The window breaks, her face starts scraping, and the whole left side of her face came off.
Recently we had a case. A woman was on her way home right after Hurricane Harvey, and she was blocks from her house, slowing down to make a left turn. And the suspected intoxicated driver was almost 3 times the speed limit and crossed the center line and hit her head on. Again, just blocks a minute from her house. And her children and husband were there waiting on her, and she did not make it to the house. Fortunately, at this point in time, she's still alive, but her life has been altered forever. She's still suffering from injuries from that particular crash.
Corral arrested a female one night, and she saw her accident on TV. It was at 4 o'clock in the morning when the news came on, and we had a TV down at Intox, and she saw herself and her car on TV, and we told her, like, hey, you're involved in an accident tonight and someone did die. And she just had no remorse.
As soon as I realized what I had struck, it was, I can't even describe it. I was just in shock of what happened. It wasn't just an accident. I struck a person. Was completely devastated. I wasn't even really worried about myself. I just couldn't believe what had happened, what I just did.
I was woke up by a police at my door at 3 o'clock in the morning. He had their IDs and asked me if I knew who these girls were. And as a mother of teens, sometimes you just think, oh my gosh, what have they done? They got in trouble. And how I wish that would have been the case. The police officer let me know that there was an accident. And he told me a young man who chose to drink and drive had at a high speed T-boned them. And the driver was killed instantly. And then he said, your other daughter is in critical condition and she's going to be life-flighted. Your grandson, they're having an ambulance for him. He's okay. We're going to transport him as well. So my friend drove me to the hospital. And when we got there, I signed in to try to find out, and they said they didn't know, just have a seat or whatever. And then they called me back over to the nurse's stand, and they apologized, and they told me, I'm sorry, but she didn't make it.
Es una apuesta, un juego de ruleta rusa donde el carro es el arma buscando una víctima. Con suerte llegarás a casa sin problemas. O tal vez seas detenido, hagas el ridículo y pases la noche en la cárcel. O tal vez podrías chocar con un árbol, un poste de luz o peor, una familia inocente.
No me acuerdo muy bien qué fue lo que pasó. Lo último que me acuerdo es cuando me salí de mi casa y me recibió mi papá y me dijo, ok, cuídate. Y es todo lo que no me recuerdo salir de la puerta de la casa, subir a mi camioneta o llegar a la estación. Nada me acuerdo. Nomás me acuerdo despedirme de mi papá. Cuando yo primero desperté y yo me acuerdo que pude tener una conversación con alguien, le pregunté a uno de mis colegas que yo sabía que estaba ahí conmigo cuando pasó. Lo que ella me pudo contar fue que estábamos tratando de parar un carro que era robado. El sospechoso se paró en la orilla de la carretera y cuando nos bajamos de nuestras patrullas para poder llamarlo que saliera del carro, un conductor que iba bajo el uso de una droga o alcohol, todavía no sabíamos, se metió a nuestra escena y me pegó a mí.
It was my sister-in-law, her unborn baby, and her husband. and they had been at their pastor's home on a Saturday night. They were heading home very late. A woman had made the choice to drink and get behind the wheel of her car. She hit them head on, putting the engine in the back seat of the car on top of them.
I was driving home after my shift in a patrol car when a vehicle pulled in front of me and hit me head on. When that vehicle hit me head on, the only thing I remembered after being hit was waking up in an ambulance. After waking up in an ambulance, I remember being at a hospital, in a hospital gown, and I couldn't feel my feet. And at the time I was 21 years old, and that was probably the most scary feeling that I had had up to that point in my life.
Been times where I've been, responsible enough to not drive while I was been drinking, and I felt to the point like, okay, I definitely can't drive. That night, I did not feel that. I felt I was capable of driving, and for that to happen, I was just in devastation.
2 de 3 personas van a ser afectadas por el crimen de manejando bajo la influencia de alcohol. La persona que comete el crimen se va a topar con 2 de 3 personas en la nación de Estados Unidos.
And if 2 out of 3 of us are affected by a drunk driver, how many drunks do you think there are out there?
It's aggravating, whenever you pull someone over and you walk up to the car and you smell alcohol and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you get them out, they're stumbling, I'm just thinking to myself, like, God, why? Why did you drive? They need to go through the field sobriety test and, you make your arrest decision, and it's just the whole time I'm thinking, why did you drive?
Someone that takes something into the body and says at the beginning of the night, oh man, I'm just gonna drink a few and go home. Well, that's where impairment begins, because that impairment is what's making you think you are okay to drive.
El conducir intoxicado no solo se trata de alcohol. El cargo de conducir intoxicado también puede ser por la influencia de drogas ilegales o incluso las legales.
You don't have to have any alcohol in your system to be driving while intoxicated. You could be under the influence of just synthetic marijuana or kush or whatever the new names are for it, but that can be DWI right there, just having that in your system. I think sometimes people might know how it's going to affect them, and it affects them the way they were intending. It might give them a euphoric effect, still make them intoxicated, but other times it goes awry and it really messes people up. It can cause them to have seizures while they're driving. It causes a crash.
One of my, I guess you could say, more notable soccer mom stories, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I happen to be in the court. I get a call from a supervisor to look at a female that's down at Central Intox. I walk in, she has her kid's soccer team shirt on. Her kid was in the car on their way to the soccer game, and she was on PCP.
You can be driving while intoxicated from your regular prescription medication that your doctor gave you, which a lot of people don't understand that.
So then we remind them, hey, that label on your medication, doesn't it say may cause drowsiness or don't operate machinery? They say, well, yes, and they do not think that their car is machinery.
We just had an officer, Nestor, we call him Nacho, a great young man, that I got a call first thing, middle of the night, really early in the morning, that he had been struck by a DWI under the influence of drugs, prescription drugs, combination of prescription drugs. And I'll never forget the words on our medical directors for the city when he told me, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. He's as close to death as you can be, and it's not looking good.
Tuve bastantes lesiones, tantas que apenas hasta diciembre todavía estaba dándome cuenta de cosas que tenía que yo nunca me imaginaba, porque era una lista muy larga de lesiones que tuve. Una fue mi rodilla, los ligamentos de mi rodilla todos rotos, me quebré como 8 costillas, la nuca también se me quebró, mi cabeza también sufrió mucho trauma, y también tuve un derrame cerebral cuando me estaban haciendo cirugía. De tanto trauma que tuve, me causó un derrame cerebral. También mi hígado estaba roto, mis riñones estaban completamente cortados. No los encontraban y los buscaron y estaban abajo de una de mis axilas. Fue una lista muy larga, pero poco a poquito la vamos haciendo.
And begin.
Las consecuencias de conducir intoxicado abarcan desde la inconveniencia y vergüenza de pasar la noche en la cárcel.
All right, well, what kind of work do you do?
I'm a banker.
A banker? Okay.
Hasta perderlo todo.
DWI is a serious charge. It is a Class B misdemeanor at a minimum or higher. And it's something that if you're convicted of DWI, it will stay on your record for the rest of your life. It's permanent, never goes away. Sometimes people are under the misconception that even though we say it's a permanent conviction, that it somehow falls off your record after 10 years. Permanent means permanent, so it will follow you around forever.
Cuando un oficial empieza la investigación de alguien manejando bajo la influencia de alcohol, el oficial primero mira a la persona manejando el vehículo.
So if I take those handcuffs off you, are you going to listen to me?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
sir.
I don't want to have any problems, okay?
No, sir. I promise you won't.
Okay, all right. Tell me your last name again. Spell it for me. Are you peeing? You're urinating. Just please don't dig in your mouth.
I don't feel well.
Okay.
I date white boys who are more educated and in a higher fucking level than you'll ever be.
Can you go ahead and roll that your female's highly intoxicated?
No, I am not highly intoxicated.
Well, you're not willing to walk for me.
I'm 2 minutes from home. You're fucking with me.
You're going to jail tonight, okay? Because you're drinking and driving.
Fuck off.
Okay.
Hace unos exámenes en la escena y a ese momento el oficial decide si va a arrestar a la persona o no. Y ya cuando lo arrestan, le pide una muestra de aliento y o sangre. A ese momento, si la persona se niega, hay otras opciones que podemos hacer para investigar
I hate white people.
La manera de
I hope they all die.
cómo agarrar evidencia. Y luego a ese momento empieza el proceso con las cortes. Va a la cárcel y claro que la cárcel no es placente para una persona. Es muy sucio, apesta y hay muchas personas que han cometido más crímenes feos nomás de manejando bajo la influencia de alcohol.
Right afterwards, I took a sobriety test. They considered me to be intoxicated. They took me to the central station, took a blood sample, and was in jail for the next 24 hours.
Las juntas con el fiscal del estado, con el abogado de usted, el abogado de defensa, que va a costar mucho dinero. Va a costar miles y miles de dólares para tratar de usted pelear el caso, la infracción que ha cometido de manejando bajo la influencia de alcohol. Y el proceso del tiempo que esto se lleva puede ser años. Y mientras estás haciendo el proceso de la corte, puedes estar en libertad condicional, con manejando en el carro que están investigando todos los años, con licencias condicionales, y estás pagando cada mes mientras estás afuera de fianza.
First off, every Tuesday I had to go to the bond company and sign in so they knew that I wasn't running or fleeing. If I were to run or flee, my parents, who had put up the money for the bond, would be charged double. So that my parents would owe $60,000 if I decided to flee or run. My license was suspended at the time, So I wasn't driving, so every Tuesday you had to find a ride to get up to sign for your bond, and court on a monthly basis. But that whole time you're wondering where your life is going next.
Just the monetary costs alone are extraordinarily high for this crime, and that's not to mention potential loss of jobs or anything else.
So, I mean, you're looking at around $20,000 and up for fines, court costs, probation fees, interlock on your car, monitoring devices, drug testing, insurance can double if they don't drop you. There's a surcharge to DPS for 3 years of a minimum of $1,000 a year. So, I mean, it's incredibly expensive.
I lost both jobs, the one at the Federal Reserve Bank after 15 years. Lost my job at Bally's as a personal trainer.
A lot of companies and corporate policies will state that if you are convicted of DWI, I mean, that's it for your job. They terminate you. You're a liability. They don't want you to work there anymore. So just, even though it's a Class B misdemeanor, one step up from a Class C traffic offense, it can be a life-altering event.
After getting out of county jail, I had to do 6 months in county jail, and 10 years probation was my plea. Not being able to find a job. Nobody wants to hire a felon, unfortunately. It's a second-degree felony, and nobody wants to hire you. You don't get callbacks, you don't get answers, you don't get any of that.
If you're in a DWI, it could be a regular DWI, but there are serious bodily injuries involved to a person you run into, or even to your friend, your passenger, your wife, a relative sitting in the car with you. You can be charged with intoxication assault, and that's a felony. Much higher charge, much more exposure. You could be facing prison time for something like that.
I'm dealing with probation for 10 years, which is monthly visits to a probation officer, random UAs. I have a breathalyzer in my vehicle. So anytime I go or leave, get in my vehicle, I have to have a breathalyzer and be able to pass that. If not, if gives a fail, goes to my probation officer. And of course, that's nothing but more trouble. They could revoke my probation, I can go to prison.
If you become a convicted felon, you lose the right to vote, you lose the right to possess firearms, you lose the right to serve on jury duty, which as lawyers, we think that's a privilege and an honor to do. So it's a severe and serious charge.
You're potentially going to have a criminal record for the rest of your life. That's something that on every job application, every college application, every application you're ever going to make for the rest of your life, you're going to have to say that you were convicted of this crime.
También existe un gran impacto que es perpetuo en las familias de los infractores de conducir intoxicados, así como de las familias de sus víctimas.
The thing about the death notification is you're knocking on someone's door at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you have no idea who is going to answer the door. It could be a 9-year-old kid, it could be an 80-year-old grandmother, the husband, the wife. And I have to say those are the longest seconds of my life, is sitting there waiting. What am I going to say? How do I respond, or whoever it is I'm talking to? And then when they open the door and you greet them best you can, and obviously they know something's wrong because you wouldn't be standing there otherwise. And you just simply have to tell them that their loved one was involved in a crash and they died. And then you stand there and you watch their life change right before your eyes. And you don't forget that. I haven't forgotten a single notification.
I just sat there on the couch, not knowing, just crying and in shock and not understanding, I just kept thinking I shouldn't have let her go. I should have been the one to drive, you know? But who knows, who's to know that a 20-minute trip will be the last one, you know, or the last kiss you get, or the last I love you.
More youth die in car crashes than by any other means. Okay. And most of the time, alcohol is involved.
Contrariamente a la creencia popular, conducir intoxicado entre los adolescentes no es solo presión de sus compañeros. También se trata del comportamiento que aprenden de sus padres.
Statistics have showed that teens take most of their cues on drinking from their parents, as opposed to the general belief that it's their peers.
El mensaje que queremos transmitir aquí no es que no tomes, que no te abajo la afluencia de alcohol. A todos les gusta tomar una bebida o dos. A mí me gusta tomar. Yo no le quiero decir a nadie que no tome, pero que lo haga con inteligencia. Que haga planes antes de empezar de tomar. De hacer planes de cómo llegar a la casa sin manejando o cometiendo la ofensa de DWI antes de empezar de tomar. Muchas personas van al ambiente y parquean el carro y empiezan a tomar y luego empiezan a hacer planes para llegar a la casa. Ya es muy tarde. Haciendo planes antes de empezar a manejar. Lo que queremos transmitir es que no manejes abajo la afluencia de alcohol.
It's not a crime like murders or rapes or anything else where there are intended targets. Every single person is a potential victim when anyone gets behind the wheel.
Because it's something that people do consciously and so flippantly. I mean, there's like no, it's not a big deal. I've made it home all the other times. I can make it tonight. And it's that kind of thinking that makes it so horrible, that no one is thinking about, I'm going to kill somebody tonight. That thought does not go through the impaired driver's mind, that they're going to kill someone tonight, or I'm going to kill myself on my way home from the bar tonight. Those thought processes do not exist.
It's not okay to let somebody drink and drive. It's not okay to make that decision.
That's what's frustrating. If we would just stop and think about it, or make plans beforehand, have responsible adults around that are willing to have the courage to take a key away from someone, a bar that has the courage to call the police and say this person's intoxicated and they need to go to jail for public intoxication instead of killing someone on their way home. Those things aren't happening. And I think the more we enforce, every arrest that we make for driving while intoxicated saves a life, no question. Either the life of the person that was driving or the lives of the people they were about to kill.
Everything from that moment on was life-changing. I couldn't go out of my house. I couldn't go anywhere.
No matter what I say, they'll never understand how I feel deep down inside. It's just a horrible feeling knowing the destruction and what I've done to their lives.
We went from a busy household, kids in and out, friends over, laughing, telling people, y'all are too loud, you're too loud. I went from that to nothing, to silence.